first of all, as she alluded to, I'm not a serial entrepreneur. Before this, I was a banker for many years, and then I was in consulting. And I think probably some people can relate in the room, but I feel that a lot of the things that these careers helped prepare me to be a good entrepreneur, but at the same time, they were holding me back. Those golden handcuffs, that really secure income, the great job that pays well, all that sort of thing, they make you not want to give it up. And sometimes you just need a bit of a push. Now, I did get a bit of a push, but also my why is I just saw people having terrible experiences buying homes, and I could see that it didn't really need to be that way. And that was really my impetus behind getting into Mortgage Sandbox. Now, the past year has been difficult. Everything goes slower than you think it would be. Every milestone that you pass is very frustrating, particularly when you've promised people that you know that, yes, it will be ready, and then it's not. It's not easy, and I do have to say I've had to swallow my pride a lot, but I've got some lessons to share tonight. So the first lesson is embrace the pivot. So Mortgage Sandbox started off trying to make home buying better for people by having a better calculator. So I had this calculator called What Can I Afford? It's built now. But the idea here was I was talking to people and finding out that they would get to closing date and they would find out, hey, there's property transfer tax of 2%, or there's sales tax on my pre-sale of 5%. So 5% of your $500,000 home is 25 grand. To me, that's terrible that someone could get to closing day and find out about these things. So the better calculator came about. Now, as I was moving forward and talking to people about the What Can I Afford calculator, it wasn't really resonating. So yeah, it's a better calculator, but it's not, it wasn't a good hook. What people seemed to be interested in was the match finder, which was matching people with pre-screened mortgage brokers and realtors based on values. That really seemed to get a hook. And so what happened is I realized that, yes, the calculator is better, but the match finder was unique. There's no one else doing that. It's I describe it as almost like an eHarmony for finding your real estate professionals. So yes, there's, in the dating realm, there's that kind of concept. But within business, we don't really do that. But if you talk to people who do selling, business to business or in sales, that concept of understanding the communication style or the values of the person that you're dealing with is really important. Are they detail-oriented? Do they need to be able to envision it? These sorts of things drive it. And that's kind of where I arrived at, understanding that the strength here, the unique piece, was the match finder and not the calculator. So now that's the core of the business. Next lesson is, you were a small fish. So my history, I worked for TD Bank. I then worked for Accenture, which is a global consulting firm that also does outsourcing, owns software, over 300,000 employees. I was used to working for companies that suppliers would trip all over themselves to work for. And now as a startup, I'm like the smallest customer anyone's got. And you conceptually understand that, but I've felt it, and I am small, right? I've chosen to go with contractors because, when you hire people on, it's more of a commitment. So the thought is test them out contracting. But you have to realize that when they have another client that is paying the bills for the year, and there's a fire drill over that client, and they need to drop everything to help their client that pays the bill, they'll do that. And you're going to be last on the list. And there's some things you can do for that. I'd recommend that you try and build in some incentives, either penalties for late delivery or a bonus for early delivery. But it's a challenge, and that would be my experience for you. And then the last lesson is around baby steps. So I talked about those two tools, What Can I Afford and Match Finder. I had them really well prototyped, built out, spec'd. The developers said, yeah, I can do this by March. And so I thought, okay, yeah, let's do that. I mean, you hear in industry people talk about a minimum viable product, and conceptually, yeah, that makes sense. But here, this still seemed to me quite minimal. There's nothing more frustrating than having two 90% complete apps or two 90% complete tools. They're absolutely useless. And so the last piece that I would share with you is be really diligent about that minimum piece, because two partly finished apps is no complete app, and you can't really go to market with that. I think that's all I had. I was taking that as the cue that my time was up. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. If I could have a runner, one of the volunteers, just taking the mic, I'll go this way. We'll take two questions for David. If anyone's got a question, if they could raise their hand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just curious, how are you going to market? How are you finding both the mortgage brokers and agents and the customers?
Yeah, so obviously I have a history in industry. Also, around 2015, I actually got my mortgage brokerage license just because I'd been out of banking for a bit, and I wanted to keep my thumb on the pulse of or my finger on the pulse of the industry. So I do have a bit of a network in industry that way, so I'm tied in with that. On the consumer side, and frankly, with mortgage brokers and realtors, they're accustomed to paying for ads, for leads, for referrals. That's not new to them. They just want quality leads and referrals. For the consumer side, yes, there's the tools, and so there's a more convenient way of finding your realtor, better than picking a number off the back of the bus. But also, I'm providing advice. So, if I was to do my full pitch, I talk about how I provide real estate insights and forecasts, interest rate insights and forecasts, home buying guides, that sort of thing. And it's coming from someone who's impartial. Like, I'm not going to sell you a mortgage in the end. I'm handing you off to someone, but I'm giving you really good information so that when you meet with that realtor or you meet with that mortgage broker, you know the right questions to ask them. So making that sticky, bringing in traffic. And so, I mean, I haven't had a product just until very recently, but if you look at the last 30 days, I had like 5,000 visitors to the site, 70% organic. So it's that content that's driving out some of the traffic, and then obviously I'm going to promote it as well.
Great question. Any other questions on this side or that side? Well, thank you so much, David. That was fantastic. I wish I heard about this before.